Welcome, everybody, to Permaculture Smackdown. My name is Josiah Wallingford, and as always, my awesome co host,
Paul Wheaton.
that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, today we're going to talk about self sufficient communities. Like, if you had an intentional community, what are some of the best skills to have within that community? Now, I imagine we're going to go into not so self sufficient communities as well. But I kind of wanted to kick it off with that. What do you think, Paul?
Well, I think first you got to define like how self-sufficient are we talking about, and are we talking about like we're going to tear out our road? We're gonna go in and we're gonna be so self-sufficient that it's land before time.
Right, like The Village. I think you brought that up in that email. Like The Village, which is
Yeah.
an awesome movie. I love that movie, by the way. The what I'm thinking is self-sufficient to the point where a community could survive long enough for another community to be built. Like the resources you have access to are with other communities, not anything outside of other intentional communities like your own, kind of a thing.
Okay.
So if you're trying to build a permaculture community, like we are all about permaculture, we try and use everything off the land that we're at to keep it as sane as possible, keep everybody uh, good without having to import things from outside the community, unless it's another community doing the same thing.
All right. I kind of feel like I don't want to play. and so here's the reason why. So years ago there used to be this thing called a newspaper. I don't know if you ever saw one.
A what?
Yeah, but that's how you
Back when there was news?
Yeah. No, there wasn't. It was all propaganda, but still. So you learn about what's going on in the world according to, whatever they let you hear about. And it's kind of like, if you really care about all these people suffering in all these different ways, you start to think of like, what can I do to help in my limited way?
Mm-hmm.
And so the solution set for nearly everything that pops up into my head is permaculture and homesteading. So let me suggest a way to play your game that is a totally different board, playing field, if you will. All right.
All right.
That is that. How do you feel about the idea that if we design a system for our community that's so good? So you're thinking like there might be 20 people on a plot of land. That's kind of what you're throwing out there. I remember one of your emails said like 20 people on a plot of land.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you're saying, what skills do they need? And so here's what I'd like to suggest. 20 people on a plot of land. And whoever's designed their system the best, then there's nobody on the land. Like the metric is who has somebody leave the land first, like to go to the store or to go shopping, or even to go and get something for the sake of entertainment.
Outside imports. Yeah.
I'm not even so much worried about outside imports. I mean, I kind of feel like, what about the concept of like, is this a world without Amazon? And so I kind of feel like, for example, a lot of the things that we're very concerned about are political, and there's a very good reason. If you live in a city and you vote somebody in and they fuck up, and next thing you know, there's no more food for anybody, suddenly politics is really important. But if we've developed a resilient, sustainable community and people go 3 or 6 months without even leaving the property, like they've got a vehicle right there. Everybody's got a car. and it's a brand new, really nice car. And it's sitting there on the edge of the property or whatever, ready to go whenever they want. They could go to town whenever they want. And then the key is, so for us, the people playing the game, we're going to each design our community in such a way that nobody, like whoever has somebody go to town first loses, right?
Sure.
Okay. So then I'm kind of thinking, but at the same time, yeah, you can still get your Amazon delivery,
Yeah.
kind of a thing.
I think there's two scenarios. One is a community in today's age.
Yeah.
And then the other community is like the prepper worry people that are like, the shit's hit the fan, the world's over. I'm talking about today's age, like right now. What would be the best things to have?
Okay. Because this stuff where you start doing, and there was a guy here who had he came for a workshop we had, and he drove this vehicle that said, like it was something about zombie apocalypse, right? It's like plastered all over the vehicle, something about zombie apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of asking the guy, like, seriously? And he's like, oh, no, it's a joke. It's a joke. No one really believes there's going to actually be a zombie apocalypse, but if you actually plan for the zombie apocalypse, just kind of happen to be planning for any kind of weird thing. It turns out they're all really aligned. Why not just say zombie apocalypse to get a giggle along the way? That's actually fair. That's actually pretty good.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do that.
But it's like planning for zombie apocalypse is kind of not what I'm into.
Right.
I do think that the things that I am pursuing do happen to pretty much solve a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah, the only thing, so you wouldn't be focusing on like having a giant fence around your community so that zombies can't get through it. Right? But you might be thinking like, I want giant berms around my house so people can't see what the fuck is going on inside. But zombies can still get over it.
Yeah, I mean, need my berms.
Right.
I kind of feel like they end up being only 2% different, but I don't know. I'm just not wired to be worried about that kind of thing. I mean, it is something worthy to be worried about, but I think what's real to be worried about is somebody going to screw something up so that our food system is fucked, And so then if you're going to the grocery store to get your food and there's nothing there, it's kind of like, that's a different animal. That's a different beast.
Yeah.
And so that seems like that shit could happen. And there's places in the world where it is happening.
Like let's say, I don't know, something crazy happens, like all the bees die. There's a big fucking problem for the whole world in going to a grocery store and getting some food. There's all kinds of shit that can happen. I do think that he's right with the whole zombie thing. It's like, if you prepare for the worst, things are a lot better for you. Like if you prepare for a financial collapse when the world is just fucked financially and there's chaos everywhere. If you've been preparing for that, it doesn't happen, but you lose a job, you're probably pretty good for a while until you can get another job.
How about the Great Depression?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, are we going to have another one of those?
Fuck yeah, we are. I think we are.
And so I think that there's a bunch of scenarios that are good to be relatively prepared for, but I also I like the tagline on Jack's show, or it's if times get tough, or even if they don't.
Yep, exactly.
And it's like the thing I to play the game that you want to play today, then I kind of feel like I like the scenario where it's the one where people have the opportunity to go and leave, but they just choose not to.
Yeah.
When you start looking at like the statistics of how many people die of car accidents and stuff, it's kind of like, I bet I could get that to go down a lot if people just didn't drive. If they just, like, if you've got a 200-acre plot of land, and you just like doing all the stuff on that plot of land, and you're having a lovely day and things are going fine, and next thing you know, it's been 6 months and you haven't left, not because like the gate's locked or you can't get out, or there's zombies out there, but it's all just because it's like I just didn't feel like it. I liked where I was better. I was having a nice time right where I am.
Mhm.
I think that's the recipe. That's the thing. So
Well, yeah, and it has a lot of like it's also being prepared for other outside shit. Having an intentional community in general prepares you for not having to deal with outside shit. Like the whole point is we are strong together, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
so together we can accomplish a lot very quickly, where individually we can't accomplish as much as quickly. And we don't have to deal with a bunch of outsider shit, but we do have to deal with our internal shit,
true, all true.
which is a lot easier than having to deal with the outside shit. And the more communities you have like that, the easier it is to deal with the outside shit, right? It's like religions. Religions have, they can change politics, they can change the world. Look at all the stuff that religion has effect on in our society, like people that like abortions talks and all kinds of things. Well, if you have communities that are doing permaculture, that changes the ideals of a great amount of people, which can change the way politics works. If you look at a big picture.
So,
So
all right. The question you put forth was, what kinds of skills do people need to learn in order to do this? Or what kind of skills do you want within your group?
right.
And so um, at the top of my list, it's like we got 20 people. It seems like you'd want to have at least 3 people that are bonkers about gardening, at least 3 people that are bonkers about cooking and food preservation. Um, I would say that you would want at least one person that's bonkers about natural building. Um, I'm tempted to say something about a person that has some sort of income stream for the group. I mean, not even for the group, but like if a person has an income stream and then they, basically pay rent or something like that, and then the rent goes to whoever is like doing this and that or whatever on the property, and the people that are doing the cooking and the people that are doing the gardening, then the money tends to go around, right?
Well, this becomes a big part of what you have in the community. So, like, of your 20 people, you want a couple of people that can export. Like, there's enough being produced within the community that there's a surplus, and you can export that surplus to get income to pay the external shit you have to, like taxes, right? So that would be where your like blacksmith comes into play, and this blacksmith sells his stuff. Maybe he's mining the materials for the blacksmithing. Maybe that's a bad example on the community, and that's where he gets the metals, and he's whatever. Or you could say furniture worker. That'd probably be better, like a furniture builder, a carpenter, and he might build furniture for everybody in the community. He might build houses, and any surplus trees that they have, like okay, we're producing twice as many trees as we're using. The surplus is going to go to him producing furniture to sell outside so we can pay taxes inside.
So, right, the moral of the story is to have at least a little bit of cash flow. And I mean, like, if a person's got like I'm thinking internet job is my first guess, but something that brings in some money, and then you know, like that person pays their rent, then and then everybody somehow contributes in some way or another towards rent. But there is some cash flow that goes around, because I do kind of feel like an important ingredient is that everybody needs a few $100 a month of income in order to pay for if nothing else, it divides you between some sort of servitude and having, having hobbies, having whatever is the thing that you want. It's your thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a person could choose a path where it's like, I'm making $100,000 a year, or a person could choose a path of like, I'm watching the clouds pass 12 hours a day. And, my life is all about luxury and doing what I think is fun and cool, as opposed to, worky, worky, worky.
Mm-hmm.
But all right, skills. I don't know. I kind of feel like most of the people are going to need a buffet of different skills.
Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of feel like within the community, there's going to be, like, I remember like 10 years ago or something like that, as I was imagining 20 people living under one roof, I was imagining, of course, a rather large building. And there would be like there'd be a few apartments in the building, as well as a couple of large rooms, and then a few smaller rooms. And then some people would be really young, like 18. And it's like, okay, they're going to provide basic labor and they're going to live very humbly,
Mm-hmm.
kind of a thing. And then there's going to be other people that it's like they are basically retired, and so they have a larger apartment because why? They pay for it, and but now they don't have to work. But I would imagine that most will, because that's what they find to be delicious and entertaining and lovely, like whatever is the thing that they're into. So part of it is like, not everybody has the exact same room. There would need to be variety, and different kinds of spaces. Some people can afford more, and other people want to live more humbly. The other thing is that I think that while there would be a structure that would house 20 people under one roof, I would like to think that there'd be like another 20 people that would live like maybe 100 yards to 400 yards away, that would still be on the same property. And so I kind of feel like, there's a few different flavors of community. Some people like being around more people. Some people prefer to be around people less often. All right. Skills. Fabric arts.
Fabric arts?
Yeah. I mean, different kinds of clothing and curtains and furniture and
An upholsterist.
sewing of all flavors. Okay. Fabric arts. I would say health would be a thing. So I know, like in this house, it seems like people are talking about general health multiple times a day, every day. But then there's going to be a time when somebody needs something a bit more significant. And so, you're saying like, what would be in your pool of skills? What would be in that pool? And so something where somebody is going to be physician-esque. Management. I think that this is something that a lot of people don't plan for. Like most people design community in such a way that it's like they expect that everybody in the community will be noble, that they will be superheroes in all the things. But it is amazing how human people are. And it's like when and how much management, and of course every last human being will say that they don't need a manager, that's just a waste of money. but you don't have one, everything goes to shit. So it's like, all right, so there needs to be some level of management. So I mentioned natural builder. It just seems like for here with green woodworking, there's so much happening all the time with building, natural building. But I don't know, there's just, when I think about all the projects that are happening right now, yeah, there's just so much that's put into the current projects. Another one would be animal management, animal husbandry.
Yeah.
And that gets broken down into what, a good 8 to 12 different things.
Yeah.
Um,
And I'd say you could do it with, to feed 20 people, the minimum you would need would probably be 3 people that were into the animal husbandry, like managing the livestock and stuff like that.
yeah, but a lot of crossover. Here's one: cleaning. I mean, the thing is that people do not. I'm going to say most people do not want to live in squalor, and for the stuff that we're doing, we've been here now about 5 years. I am certain we have spent more than $100,000 just directly in cleaning, and then probably that much again in gappers and boots and whatever, trying to clean up after others. So maybe it would be fair to say we've spent $200,000 just in cleaning up after people. And that would probably, I think it would be fair to say that would be cleaning up after people who insist that they don't need somebody to clean up after them because they're plenty tidy. But it's like, it's just amazing. How, people make a mess. And at the same time, it's like, if you leave a hotel room, you might leave that hotel room thinking, I've left it just as clean as I found it.
They're still going to strip the sheets. They're still going to vacuum.
No. Wait. Listen to where I'm going with this.
Okay.
So you're going to leave the hotel room thinking, I've left it perfectly clean.
Right.
But if you arrive at that same hotel room, left that way, you would be on the phone in a minute to the what the fuck, this room isn't clean. And so it's like, what people think that they're doing in the world of cleanliness is a completely different thing of what they expect in the world of cleanliness. Mm-hmm. And it's like, this is where the difference between those two is called being human.
Yeah.
And so,
well, also, I think you get used to your own filth. Like, that's what happens. You get used to your filth. You think it's clean. Someone else from outside walks in, not clean.
Yeah.
So you think that would be a specific person in the community? Like, hey, we need you to be the cleaner.
You're asking, like, what are the skills that you would need to have for a sustainable and resilient community?
Yeah.
And so I kind of feel like,
put that as like a sanitary expert, a sanitation kind of person, maybe.
I mean, are any of these a person?
I think what it is everybody has like 12 skills that they try to have, but they master one. And so you want to pick the people that have, these are the 20 people that have these master skills. And we expect that they will also go after these 12 additional skills, or whatever number you want to put on it.
I kind of can't help but think that there will never be a situation that will be that organized or that clean cut. Mm-hmm. And that it's always going to be, you're gonna make the best of what you have. But what I am trying to do is I am trying to say that, first of all, you need the ability to keep things clean, and there are a few people that can do it, and I would say 90% of the people believe that they can do it. 8% of the people can actually do it.
Right.
And and if you don't have it, it won't be a sustainable community. And I kind of feel like so many people focus on the gardening and on raising the animals and the alternative energy. There's one. You need at least one person that's going to be able to do your alternative energy stuff. But the thing is it's like, you know, it's amazing how if you're going to do community living. In fact, when we very first got here, I was just thinking about this earlier today. When we very first got here, we knew we needed somebody in order for all the things to work. So we hired a full-time cook. And then we wanted to hire a full-time person to clean. And I've kind of talked about Dirty Cup CSI a bunch of times. I'm not sure if I've talked about it in the Smackdown or not. But rather than having like Dirty Cup police who will track you down and slap you upside the head and say, this is your fucking dirty cup, you're a slob. I mean, that doesn't really help, right? I mean, first of all, nobody wants to be that fucking cop because everybody's going to hate you. And the next thing is that you don't need that kind of public shame or even private shame. You know, that's not really helping anything. And so then it's kind of like, all right, well, how do you work this out? How do you solve it? And it's like, well, rather than having, you know, a dirty cup cop, you know, what do you do at a restaurant? You know, hey, are you such a pig? You need to fucking, you know, why don't you clean up after yourself? When you're done eating your meal, there's a dishwashing station over here. Go wash your fucking dishes. There's a rag, wipe down your fucking table so the next people, there's people that are on staff that'll do that. But it's like, in the end, we thought we would hire one person. And then when we offered the job, 3 people applied, and they all 3 seemed like they weren't really good. And so what we ended up doing at the time is we hired all 3, thinking that we'd let 2 of them go, and we had to let all 3 of them go. None of them could clean. In fact, it was at the time of Permaculture Voices 1. And so Jocelyn and I left to go to Permaculture Voices 1. And apparently within 24 hours, the 3 of them had trashed the house, just trashed it. And so, and then we got back and they hadn't finished cleaning up after themselves. So, you know, this was their job. All right, so that's a story of human beings being human.
Yeah.
But I think it's an important component, you know, especially if you're building community. People come, they check it out, and they're like, "Do I want to live here?" And if it's a fucking shithole, then either A, there's going to be maybe 6% of the population that's like, "No, I love the idea of living in a shithole. That's great." But I think most people are going to be like, yeah, I'm not going to live in a shithole. So it's got to be clean. All right, there's an odd thing. You know, you want to have sustainable community. That one's got to be covered somehow. I remember when I was a kid reading the book. I think it may have been Player Piano by Kurt Vonnegut. But I remember thinking that, wow. You know, by the time I'm an adult, maybe the job that pays the most might be janitor. That, you know, that might be the big money comes from, you know, cleaning up after people.
Well, I know waste management people get paid pretty well.
Do they?
Like people that deal with big time waste stuff, they get paid pretty damn well. There's $100,000 jobs out there for people that get rid of trash, you know, in cities. Yeah.
Wow. That is, I'm not surprised, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, nobody wants to do it, right? When you have very little people that want to do it, and you need them to have a lot of training in how to properly handle waste.
Yeah.
End up with some high paying jobs.
Yeah. Oh man. All right. So, what do you got on your list?
All right. I was tracking kind of what we had in similar. My list, I had an engineers, not civil engineer, but just an engineer-minded person, someone that can deconstruct and reconstruct things, really think about how things work.
Mhm.
Um, Plumber. I think plumbing is a essential skill to have. And that includes things like aquaponics, aquaculture stuff, not just indoor plumbing kind of things, but water management. Um, a carpenter, so someone that can build stuff and know it's being built right, or help people that are building know that it's being built right. So in carpentry, I see two kind of different people. I see the builder, and then I also see someone that like makes furniture and things, like does the hand railings and that kind of stuff, or beds, and helps people build chairs, stuff like that. I have doctor, which would be medic, midwife, and herbalist naturopaths, like someone that knows all that stuff. And maybe that is three different people. Maybe there's a medic, a midwife, and an herbalist naturopath kind of person. Next, I have a leader who does the planning and entertainment. So that would be someone that arranges for entertainment to happen. Really, a leader recognizes who's in the group and who could do some entertainment or is good at entertaining and arrange for that kind of stuff to happen, so that people aren't going nuts. I have a livestock management, veterinarian on here. I have a metalworks, someone that's good with working with metals, fixing tools. I have a mechanic and I have an electrician, and that might be one and the same. Depends on how advanced you're getting, but I think they would work very closely together. For example, if you're building some micro hydro power stuff or wind turbine stuff, you would want both electrician and mechanic involved with that. Let's see here. I have a master gardener, and I have cooking and food preservation. So a lot of my stuff overlaps with yours. I have some things you don't, and you have some things I don't. I didn't have cleaning in there. I did not have fabric arts. Didn't even think about fabric arts. Um, as far as wealth income stream for the group, my ideal is I'm setting up this community. I have these list of people that I want to invite into the community. Those people I'm looking for, can they do a job on the community? Like, can they have a business on the community, within the community? That's very important to me. And naturally, if they have a job, they're probably an expert in one of these fields. So they go hand in hand. And the reason for that is the income. You need to be able to have income stream, whether it's from within the community or from outside the community. People need income streams. Um, and so that's where I think about the wealth income stream for the group. You do need someone there has to be some kind, as long as there's a government outside, you do have to have some kind of collective for paying those taxes. Um, you do have to have some kind of collective for building the common areas. Like if you're going to have a big common kitchen, there's got to be some way of taxing basically people, or getting them to, if you have to bring in out external stuff. But the whole goal is to not have to bring external stuff in. So if the goal is that and you're following it, great. Then you don't have to have that, but you do have to have all these people with these skills to combine together to build these common areas.
So yeah, I would think that the thing you need to do is rather than say tax, I'd say you're paying rent, and then when the rent's
Mhm.
collected, then you're going to turn around and pay your taxes or whatever else you need to pay. Um,
But if all you have to worry about is taxes, like if you're able to get in an internal community, a self-sufficient community, all you have to worry about is taxes. And if you have that much acreage, you're probably uh, it's enough to hold 20, families. Um, you are probably zoned agriculture, like you're doing agriculture, so your taxes are fairly low. You might pay $7,000, $10,000 in taxes a year that you need to collect from everybody. Might even be less than that. Some places, if you have that much acreage, it's $500 a year.
So I think that there's going to be more expenses. There's going to be, like I'm kind of thinking about, you mentioned plumber, and I'm thinking like, well, you're probably going to have a well. And then as we're talking about waste management, it's like, okay, if you have willow feeders, somebody's got to move the cans around.
You need
Um,
vehicles, stuff like that. Yeah.
the roads need to be maintained, and then there's going to be things that are shared, things like the different kinds of whatever you got on your perimeter to help maintain and manage your perimeter, management with your neighbors, for neighboring lands. What is the story there? What has to be done? And if you don't, I mean, like somebody's got to take care of all of that. And then it's like, okay, is that person getting paid? I mean, if the person that's the janitor is getting paid, why didn't that get paid? I mean, I kind of feel like there's a lot of stuff that we do here, and we have people that we pay, and any person that I pay, and I'm paying them generally something on the order of at least 10 to 15 times more than what I get paid.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the amount of money that I end up taking home is trivial. But it's like, we got to get this stuff done. We got to move it forward. And so,
Yeah, that leader,
those
the
people want to
planner
get paid.
guy, he has to also be able to do an income. And that might be event management. Like that's just part of his gig. He's a big event manager guy.
I like the thing that you said where you were talking about somebody basically needs to be in charge of entertainment.
Mhm.
And I kind of think to myself, that's true. A good community is going to have like, we're all going to get together and do a thing for, Pi Day. We're all going to get together and do something for Christmas. We're all going to get together and do something for summer solstice. We're all going to get together and do something and remember last year during summer solstice when, blah, blah, blah. And it's like somebody is going to weave some sort of event, some sort of beauty in the form of gathering into the fabric of the community.
Mhm.
And it's like, there's got to be somebody who's just bonkers about that kind of thing and sets it up and makes it happen. And then everybody else can kind of show up and it's cool.
One idea I had in that aspect was and this would be like part of the event management kind of thing, is you have these experts in these fields, right, in your community. You have 20 people that are good at something, and every day they're doing that thing. Uh, one day a week, so one day a week, everybody gets together, and maybe you couldn't do this all the people get together, but everybody gets together and focuses on that one person's thing, whatever they're working on. And then the next week, you go to the next person in the list and you help them work on their thing. And the idea being that, like you said, you're going to have multiple skills. People need to have multiple skills. The idea is to get people to learn all these other people's skills. They might not be as good, obviously, but they will pick up on things. Like if you got to help someone weld and you've never welded, you're going to learn a lot about welding, helping them do their welding.
So Jocelyn and I have a setup right now where once a day for 20 minutes, it's Paul project time. And so I have a list of about 20 different things that I want to get done personally.
Mm-hmm.
So then we go outside and we work on that thing. So today we worked on the siege ladder. So basically those two big logs, You remember that from a few weeks ago?
Yeah.
So today we were like, figuring out what's the next step to get the next log up there and stuff like that. And so that's what we did. And then 20 minutes a day is Jocelyn's projects. And so then, all right, I'll go out and I'm going to work with Jocelyn on whatever project that she wants to do. And I think, I'm trying to think, what did we do yesterday for Jocelyn's projects? I can't remember. But each day is a couple of that. So it's kind of like what you're saying, like one a day. But the thing that mixes it all up is that every once in a while, I'm on an incredibly important call trying to fix something. And of course, I thought it would take 5 minutes. Under a reasonable, rational world, it would take 5 minutes. I've now been on the phone for 2 hours and I've missed my project time.
Yep.
And then sometimes Jocelyn, sometimes I miss Jocelyn's project time. Sometimes and it's like, what are you going to do? And then the other thing is that we'll have set up something and all kinds of people will not be able to make it for one reason or another. And how often is it that you set up an event and nobody shows up? And it's like, so the other thing that I thought was really interesting is I kind of have learned, because like a lot of communities will say like, okay, if you're going to live here, it costs $500 a month, plus you owe the community 5 hours per month. And then people that have been there for only 3 months, they go to all the things. But anybody that's been there longer than 3 months, they tend to go to none of the things. So they owe 5 hours a month, but they don't do it. Now you're asking about sustainable community. And it's like, not only have I been hyper focused on this topic for 13 years now, but in the last few years, it's like anywhere where I have a pain point, it's like, okay, there's a lesson to be learned about community. And I think more recently, the thing that's the slippery fish that really needs the greatest amount of attention is resentment. So remember what I told you about those 3 guys that were they were being paid to clean? Yeah. And they didn't, but they were being paid. They were all being paid full time to clean. And so, and it's like, I don't know, on the whole property, there may have been like, 11 people on the whole property. And we got 3 people who are supposed to be working full time to clean. And they're not doing it. They're not even cleaning up after themselves. Yeah. It's a joke. Then you've got somebody who's there as a boot, who does clean up after himself. And he's working, 50, 60 hours a week on projects. He's really putting in more time than anybody else. So you've got somebody,
these people that aren't working.
You got somebody who's billing us for 40 hours a week, probably actually working 30 to 32 hours a week. And then that 30 to 32 hours, they're doing a lame job, just pathetic. And so it's kind of like, and then on top of that, they're cleaning up after, they're not even cleaning up after themselves. I mean, if you think about it, there's 3 hours of work to be done, but they spend 31 hours a week working on 3 hours of work, which might even include them doing their own personal laundry. This is their job. Next to a guy that's not getting paid at all. And so like, well, what's his story? And so this is the formula to create resentments. So the guy that's getting paid is resenting that this other guy is doing more than him and isn't getting paid. And the guy that isn't getting paid is resentful that this guy is getting paid and he's a fucking loser.
Yeah.
And so it's like, this is the foundation for resentment. So it's like, okay, well, what's the cure? And then we came up with the whole bounty program. And it's like, okay, but of course there's a lot of jobs where it's like, this should take like 4 minutes. And you spend a half an hour negotiating what the bounty is for a 4-minute task.
And now you have resentment to the person because it's taking them too long to do something that shouldn't take that long.
And then there's, resentments about the quality of the work that was done, and then whatever other kind of, it's like the other thing that has become really apparent with the bounty program is that a person will say, okay, I'll do that, and I'm going to get $400 for doing that, and they get like 20-30% of the way into it, and they realize, I have no fucking idea what I'm doing. I won't even be able to get done the bare minimum. I can't, I don't have the skills. And what I did is I told Paul I'm an expert at it. And it's becoming clear to everybody, I have no fucking idea what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, so now what do you do? And it's like, there's another resentment engine right there. So a person decided to be like, yeah, I'm awesome at that. That's no problem. That's, that's a piece of cake. That's nothing. I understand it completely. And I'll have it done for you in 2 days. And then, it's like, 2 weeks later, it's like still barely started. So resentments everywhere. The boot camp is awesome. The boot camp is so great. So boot camp is great, and Ant Village is great, and because it's like if you've rented a plot on Ant Village, and you go up there, and you're not getting anything done, doesn't matter. Nobody gives a shit. You've paid your fucking rent. If you want to watch the clouds pass, that's your own business. And then you break your own tools. Who cares? Damn, you broke your tool. Yeah, I'm not feeding you. So it's not like you have to get anything done in a certain amount of time. If you're hungry, it's on you, man. And then the boot camp program, when it's managed by Fred, because Fred is awesome, then it's like, okay, we're going to go out and we're going to work today from 8 a.m. until noon. Here's what we're working on. We go out there and everybody works. Everybody works hard. No one has an obligation to do anything beyond the next 20 minutes or so. So if it turns out you suck at something, not a problem. Fred's right there standing next to you. He's going to help you out, learn everything you need to know to get it done. No resentments. Yeah. No resentments. So now it's possible that you might get some resentments because one person is working hard and another person's kind of phoning it in. But you know what? That can get sorted out too. And it's like, all right, hey, this guy, he worked really hard and stuff. He's amazing, and he's smooth to work with. What a nice fella. We're going to, and try to entice him to stick around. We're going to sweeten the pot for him one way or another.
Yeah.
And so now that guy, so now the guy that was slacking is like, why don't you sweeten the pot for me? Yeah. I think you know the answer to that.
Yeah.
Now, the funny thing is that when we first got here, we had to pay people to come and work on projects. And there was one guy who, brought in a lot more skills. We paid him more. And then he had a family emergency. He had to leave. He decided to tell the other people who were getting paid how much he was getting paid. And then what we learned was all those other people, because the guy that was leaving probably did twice as much work in a day than any of the other people, but he was paid about 50% more. All of those other people were angry as fuck. Each one insisted that they did twice as much work in a day as the guy that was leaving. Each and every one of them.
But yeah, it's like, you might have done twice as much work, but he did it 3 times better. Or it's like, sorry, you can work 20 hours or something, but if you suck at it,
you may have done twice as much work, but you accomplished half as much.
Exactly.
Yeah. So anyway, it was bizarre. It was really bizarre. And I've been seeing this stuff on the internet lately that says everybody should tell everybody else that they work with how much they get paid. And because like when I worked, You never talked about pay.
Yeah, you don't.
Never.
Yeah.
You didn't know if the guy sitting next to you was being paid more or less. Never.
Well, for one thing, your negotiation skills might be a lot better than someone else's. So when I got hired, I negotiated better. You know what? Sorry, tough shit. Go fucking learn how to negotiate and try again.
All of that, and of course, eventually I ended up in an executive position, and I knew what everybody was making. But the important thing is that it's like, it kind of doesn't fucking matter. But it's like, yeah, there were people that were getting paid more than others, and sometimes it was justified, and sometimes it was not. And then, in time, you got to cull the herd a bit. And so it's like, when people are being paid more than what they're really worth, out they go.
Yep.
And so it all gets sorted out in the end. Yeah. But the thing where they're advocating on the internet, like everybody should tell everybody else what they're getting paid. It's like, oh man, you do that, it'll all be over quickly. And I know that a lot of the companies I've been at, if you shared any of that information, you'd be fired. Doesn't matter how good you are, because if you're telling other people what you're getting paid, that's less than professional. And it's like, I'm sorry, we were paying you a professional wage. You just proved to us that you're not a professional. Out you go.
Here's what I'd like to see. How much of my taxes is going to each person? I walk down the street, I see, oh, $800 a year goes to this person, whatever, like all the welfare cases. Let me see how much money they're taking from me. And then how much money I'm taking from the community as well.
No, so you get to look at your own number. You get to look in the mirror.
Yeah.
Your own number.
Oh, sweet. All right. Fucking kicking ass.
All I'm saying is that sorting this stuff all out, there's a lot to be said for the lessons of the more recent years are about resentments. Mm-hmm. That's it. That one's tricky. That one's a delicate one. All right. We've probably wandered off the topic a bit.
A little bit. I mean, I was just thinking about roads. You had mentioned roads, and it's like, all right, there's all kinds of ways you can build a community. What do you think, like even you could say in society, if government wasn't doing roads, how would this be done? Right? And so what it would probably be done is that each individual property owner has to do their own roads, their business roads or whatever. There would probably be one person that says, I will maintain this road, but I'm going to charge you to be on it. That's a business person that does a toll road to help pay for doing the work of that road. So what I'm trying to do is mitigate or eliminate the need to have people pay as much as possible. Like they have to pay in their rent or whatever their tax or their rent or whatever towards the community. If you can mitigate that as much as possible, I think the better off you are. So but then again, you run into things like, yeah, I'm John, the road guy. I charge you $5 a month to be on my road. I use that money to feed myself, to buy, food from you, and to maintain the road. And then what if that person's doing a real shitty job? And then now you have to have some kind of competition. So maybe you have one person that manages half the road and the other person manages the other half, or who knows. But I think there needs to be a competitive nature in place to get rid of the resentment.
So this is where we come back. Okay, because we're talking about like community and having a resilient community, right? A resilient, sustainable community. And I'm just kind of thinking that it's like, okay, everybody has to pay rent, and then the rent needs to go out to certain parties. And so one of the things is you mentioned property taxes, and the next item is going to be for somebody to clean a lot of the stuff. And then there's going to be some stuff about management, and there's going to be, blah, 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 blah. And I would say part of it is going to be like the roads that are within the property are going to have to be covered with that rent. But now I think you're trying to talk about something where it sounds like you're trying to find a libertarian solution to like state roads or something.
what I'm trying to say is, can we eliminate the commons as much as possible within a community so that people are working together but as individuals? So you might have a common workshop, but that common workshop is owned by someone in the community and they manage it and they charge for your use to it, instead of everybody having to pay one person to make sure that the shop is operational and clean and maintained. You actually have the person being the business owner of that workshop.
Huh. So we did a little bit of that here, where we kind of rented out the shop for people to, for like the ants to use, and then we went to go and get a couple of the come-alongs, only to find out that the come-alongs, like 2 of the 4 come-alongs, were totally trashed, just destroyed. And it's kind of like, when did that happen? And so of course everybody's like, I didn't do it. And it's like, so you're kind of designing a system based on everybody in the system being noble.
No,
And
I don't think so. Because if you're the owner of that workshop and sometimes shit gets trashed, you have to up the cost of using that workshop to
yeah,
cover those kind of expenses. You
absolutely.
have to run it like a business.
Everybody, so basically the cost of using the shop goes way up until it becomes so expensive you all have to build your own fucking shop.
Yep.
You know, and so that's a big part of what we saw, is everybody kind of did their own thing on their own plot without using the shop. But it's not because we jacked up the price. But on the other hand, there was also this whole thing where we had I basically said Allerton Abbey could be used as a public meeting place as long as it was kept nice for being tour ready. And Jocelyn came to me one day and said that she needs me to not go look in Allerton Abbey for 2 weeks, and it won't be available for the tour for 2 weeks. I'm trying to say, well, why? What's going on? What happened? She's like, I can't tell you until afterwards. And so just trust me 2 weeks. And so then I was finally allowed to go look at it. It looked fine. But apparently, so Jocelyn for 2 weeks, she got everybody to come help chip in. But it took Jocelyn 2 weeks, and we paid some people for, I don't know, probably, I think there's probably about 7 or 8 days total of pay that people were paid to clean it.
And how much did
That's
you
after-
charge for
And
those
that's after
people?
just 5 or 6 months of them going in there. And I only just heard recently that there were some people that were bandying about these phrases like, oh, you know, Abbey clean. And what they meant by Abbey clean was that you can make as much of a mess as you want. And it's like, so apparently they were in somebody else's structure, which I had gifted, and they were not treating it well.
Well, that's the problem. So that is like, if you're gifting it, you got to expect that kind of shit to happen and be able to cover the cost. That's part of the gift. But if you're a business, you're going to charge people to use that space, knowing that they're going to trash it and you're going to have to pay to clean it.
So then we get in this whole space of like, okay, we're going to charge for use of that space. And then what we know is going to happen is people are going to use the space and not pay the charge. And so then you need to have, now we're back to having police. You know, you got to.
No, you have to have someone that runs the business.
So we got to have some way of being able to know that somebody is using the space without paying for it.
Mm-hmm.
And
So
it's,
I don't think you need police for that.
but what we ended up doing is just not doing that anymore.
Right.
We're just. I thought it was a great way to build community and people would be able to come together and hang out. And I thought that they would keep it relatively clean, and I was mistaken. I was just mistaken.
Yep.
And I think what needed to happen, and what happened the following year is that everybody had their own little cabin, right? And so then they would all like get together in one guy's cabin one night, and they'd get together in somebody else's cabin the next night, and they'd all get together and have community time and stuff. But you know, if you had a bunch of people over, first you're there, they're not gonna you know. They're not going to be as messy because you're right there. And then when they leave, then it's like, yeah, I'll clean up after this. It's just one night. Oh, it's not that it's easy to clean up. So they're going to clean it up, and they're going to clean it up to their own standards because it's their own little private cabin. And so it's like, so everything manages to stay clean on this system. But yeah, with the other system, no.
I would say if I were doing the alternative, like if I was attempting to do what you were doing, and maybe you'll do this again later, I would put a camera in. Be like, and there's a camera, guys. It's recording, so just letting you know if something's really fucked up, I'm gonna know who did it. If someone fucks something up and someone else just cleans it up, I'll know who did it.
Even
It's
if you
just
do
there.
that, like, okay, I mean, you get into all these weird spaces, but so we talked about the idea of like everybody's going to pay a certain amount each month, and then we're going to take that money and we're going to pay somebody to clean it like weekly.
Mm-hmm.
But then that would mean that each person would need to pay $50 a month or something to have access, and nobody wanted to pay that much to have access.
You need an entrance fee.
And so the bottom line is that we just closed it down. And then if you do the camera thing, like what you're talking about, then you got to have somebody who looks at the video. First, there's like the cleaning person's got to go up and see that there's a fucking mess. And then they got to tell you, which the cleaning person's getting paid by the hour. So they're kind of like, no, I'll just fucking clean it, you know? But all right, let's say there's something so bad, they got to report it, you know? And then you got to go look at all this video, you know, and try and find out who did it. It's like, it could take you hours of pouring through video to try and find out who did what. And it's kind of like the next thing is like the whole thing about the come-alongs being broken. Then comes this whole idea of like, oh shit, we should have had video like pointed at the come-alongs so we could see who did it. But the other thing is that, well, and it's true too, if you got a video camera pointed at the come-alongs and somebody comes and takes the come-alongs down and they bust it, and there's video, they're probably more likely to be like, oh, I better replace those now.
Yep.
You know? So
yeah, they're holding themselves responsible. That's
how many video cameras are you going to have to get cameras on all your tools in the shop?
You might have 20 cameras, but they're pretty cheap now, and they're all motion sensors, so they only record when there's motion happening, so it makes it quicker to skim through stuff. But you're right, there is a cost to it where it's gonna, if someone really fucks something up and doesn't own up to it, which they probably will because there's a camera, and you make it obvious and knowing there's a camera, then you got to go through the video and see who really fucked it up. But it's probably not going to happen.
We look at the come-alongs, we realize they're broken, and it's been 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, so that would mean you have to go through 6 months of video.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a hell of a chore. And then on top of that, like having video cameras everywhere, is this really like the kind of life you want to live?
Well, if I'm running a business, it is. Yeah. Like if I'm running a store, I'm going to have cameras in there because I want to see the shoplifters. I mean, it's just part of business because it costs me more to not have the cameras there than it does to have the cameras there. That's all it is. It's cost analysis.
So here's an important thing out of community, and that is, and this is, I'm gonna just state its absolute fact, and then if everybody wants to not believe it, that's fine. Small disrespects always grow into large disrespects. So if you're talking to somebody and they keep interrupting you, then that's a small disrespect. Somebody borrowing something without your permission, that's getting bigger, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a long list of things that are just, I mean, you know that there's people where it's like, I'm going to not do that because I don't want them to get the wrong idea about me. And it's like, I think there's a lot of people that live their life that way. And there's other people that are like, oh, come on, just borrow it. You'll return it. He'll never know. It'll be fine. That is a disrespect. Mm-hmm. And so there's something about just a person being respectful to others in their community and like authentically caring about others. I mean, that's not all that common either. And it's like, well, you know, that's Paul's or that's Josiah's thing. I don't want to use Josiah's thing unless I get his permission first. And it's like, yeah, but we need it now. He'll never know. And it's like,
yeah, he will. That fucker puts cameras everywhere.
Not only am I going to not touch it, but I'm now taking on the thing where I'm not going to allow you to touch it either.
Right.
You're saying that you're willing to borrow it without Josiah's permission. I am not cool with even knowing that you did that. I'm not even cool with knowing that you thought of it.
Yeah.
You know, and so now you've got something you can build community out of, as opposed to, you know, so like I lived in the community for a while, and not only was there a guy stealing my food, but I had like a bucket of screws and some tools, and so somebody built a bunk bed, and it's like they're like, check out this bunk bed that I made, and there's my screws, and of course, you know, it turns out later they totally borrowed my drill without my permission, and they just used a bunch of my screws because I had a big bucket of screws. He's got so many screws, he's not even going to notice they're gone
Right.
until I see them right there in
Yeah.
the thing you're trying to show me. And it's kind of it's amazing how this, and the guy that was stealing my food, I don't know how long he was stealing my food. It took me a long time to catch him. I noticed my food was going missing, and it took me like more than a month to finally catch him red-handed. And the whole thing that he was doing is that he was living in this community, and everybody's basically on their own for food is the deal. And he had just found a way to live his life without having to buy any food. And because he was just stealing mine,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it's like these little disrespects are poison on community, and they always grow to bigger disrespects. I'm going to say always as a universal truth. And I think that there's going to be people that are going to argue that it's not universally true. That's legit. You guys go ahead and make that argument. I'm convinced it's a universal truth. Small disrespects always go to big disrespect.
Yeah, I don't have any argument against that. No Smackdown for that one. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed the show. We are out of time. However, if you are a Patreon supporter of Paul Wheaton's or a member of Thrive Through or a student of Permaethos, you get special access to the back end, and you get to continue chit-chatting with us about things we wouldn't have talked about live. So thank you very much for everybody's support, and we'll see you all next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.